And that the movement is going to have to create its own narrative anyway alongside that. And I think that the example I use that is, you know, having grown up in Atlanta, Georgia, within the social the civil rights movement, you would think that I would have gotten everything that I should have gotten about Dr. King's projection, but understanding his position on peace, his position on war, was not something that was always articulated in the classroom. That's something that came from the movement, right? So I just want to put that out there. You know, I think we should have that struggle, but understand that we have to find those alternative institutions to tell our story.
Or alternative projects. Picking up on the theme that Tom Hayden raised earlier about organizing around the politics of memory, he mentioned also that there was a process of historical cleansing in terms of our own history. And no aspect of the anti-war history from the Vietnam period has been more historically cleansed than the GI movement and the veterans anti-war movement. And it's true, the war itself, you know, the empirical evidence of that is in, for example, if you look up a Wikipedia entry on opposition to the Vietnam War. It's the place, you know, if you have a kid who's in the senior years of high school or early undergraduate, you know, and they've been assigned something on the subject of Vietnam, you know, where's the first place they're going to go? They're going to go to Wikipedia, right? That's the fallback to begin. And if you look at the entry in Wikipedia on opposition to the Vietnam War, it's terrible. It's extraordinarily thin, and it almost entirely leaves out the veteran and GI movements. Well, in terms of an alternative approach to this organizing around the politics of memory, a friend of mine and I are going to go into that Wikipedia entry, and we're going to evaluate the what's there and what's not there, and we're going to start actually improving that site. It's a very tedious kind of process, but it's one that's going to have some chance of actually reaching people, because when these young people go to that Wikipedia site, they're going to now see this improved. It's going to take us a year or so to do this, but they're going to see an improved entry on the opposition to the Vietnam War. And I was looking recently, I read there's a sociological study about how Vietnam itself is being reported in the high school textbooks, and goes back to well, anyway, you know, I don't have it in front of me, but the Vietnam War has been, of course, underrepresented in these high school textbooks. And that's another area where we have to, you know, maybe, you know, it's another area where intervention is necessary. You've got to be able to get that story in these, you know, before these young people in some way.
Last year, a group of us in New York, from Vets for Peace and from Vietnam Veterans Against the War, had the honor of meeting with the president of Vietnam. He was on a visit. He stopped to see Obama first, and then he reported something and see us. But one of the things that he mentioned, and it's something that always really bothered me, the way it's treated here, is the POW issue and the MIAs. He said that there's something like over 500,000 missing in action Vietnamese, and they could use any kind of help they could possibly get to try to locate mass graves, grave sites, battles, whatever. And we said we would try to publicize it, and we do. And the other part of that is the POW issue here, how it's treated, you know, the way it was created with Sylvester Stallone, that you still have thousands of POWs in the hidden jungle camps being worked to death for the rest of their lives. You know, and this is the kind of lies that really have to be exposed. You know?
The flag. I didn't realize.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it's every state has passed a law saying that you have to fly this POW MIA flag.
And there are MIAs. I mean, you know, obviously plenty of pilots were shot down and stuff. But as soon as the Vietnamese find any remains, they turn them over. You know, they're not trying to stop, you know, this from being, you know, done. But any help they can in finding their own home is greatly appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, on the POW MIAs, that was the first thing that the U.S. government in Vietnam started talking about in 1988, long before they established diplomatic relations. And so far, over about 2,100 missing in action, about remains of about 700.
Well, the whole issue of POWs. I'm sorry.
But they've done the easy ones first.
Yeah.
It gets harder and harder. But I also endorse his point about POWs. That this was a bit of propaganda that still hangs in the public mind.
Yeah. I mean, Nixon used it to continue the war, and then they used it after that to keep from having, you know, making reconciliations with the Vietnamese and diplomatic recognition and everything else.
And for the last several years, the Department of Defense has been assisting the Ministry of Defense with the MIAs.
Okay. Any others on that MIA issue specifically?
Like, I just want to make comments because there's lots of things about the propaganda going from Pentagon, but like as you mentioned about Rambo going back to Vietnam, reclaiming POWs. So what was the role of Hollywood of filling this void that was like left out in high schools? Like what there did actually.
It took a long time for Hollywood to make anything about the Vietnam War that was even close to factual. You know, I mean, you had ones that were ridiculous, you know, and with the Rambo movies, same thing, you know. Yeah, I mean, the Green Berets were the best. I mean, the sun came up on the wrong side, you know. And I actually knew someone, they filmed a lot of it at Fort Bragg. And the sergeant, you know, he was stationed down there when we were filming it. And John Wayne was so old, he couldn't even get into the helicopter, you know, to help him in. And we used a stunt double for him all the time. You know, but, I mean, movies like that, it was ridiculous.
Barbara.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, just talking about films. I mean, there's so many extraordinary documentaries, and if different vets or educators went around to different schools and showed them to students, you have something there really to discuss, because you could get hundreds of students into a room and then have an incredible discussion after it. And also not to forget the music. I mean, so many veterans have written fantastic songs and read poetry and other things that just get to the heart of the matter, that culture should be a very big part of all of this, and we should use it to the max.
Would you say the Zinn Network listing of films is a good one, or are there?
I don't know,
Okay.
but I just want to see it really get out there and see speakers with it. So to bring people in and to educate them and to bring them into the movement.
Right. I want to get those who haven't had a chance yet, so Jim.
I don't know if this is the right time, and I can wait for it, because you suggested something about engaging the current sort of military veterans, and I'm sorry, Jonathan, that over a 6-year period, we ran 85 weekend workshops for returning Iraq and Afghanistan veterans to teach them peer support to deal with PTSD, which it did, and to get them engaged in things like ICAW. I did it by raising a bunch of millions of dollars. That hit a money problem, and so I'm now trying to figure out how to get it going on a volunteer basis. I just wondered if anybody else has things that they're doing to engage the military now, and sort of, someone said that the different format is there.
Well, one thing we're doing, I can just report. So I teach at the Kroc Institute for Peace Studies at Notre Dame, and we have a big Peace Studies program. We also have a very big ROTC program. But the Peace Studies professors do have a monthly brown bag luncheon dialogue with the ROTC commanders. And so these are, majors, lieutenant colonels, sort of the end of their career. They've been deployed several times. We actually get along quite well and share a lot of insights. We don't agree on everything, of course, but the fact that it's brown bag, it's not official, and we can just share insights, and they'll tell us, what's actually going on the ground in Fallujah or whatever, and we can talk about our view of peace theories. And,
so very different military today.
Yeah, but we're also we're finding now our students, so the undergraduate peace students are now doing a similar dialogue with the cadets and midshipmen in the ROTC classes. So these dialogues, I think it's really valuable, and we could get more of us as vets and peace activists, peace teachers to engage with, it has to be a non-threatening environment. We're not trying to push our agenda initially. It's, we're trying to listen first, share insights, and we can find a way that we can learn from each other and find possible avenues of interaction.
David, doesn't that legitimate it in a way? I mean, I'm very concerned about this, that part of what happens, I think, is that it normalizes it. I think that, given the size and reach of the American military establishment and the national security state, it's very worrying to not be really clear about opposition. And that, people on active duty, etc., the kind you're talking about, you can have very interesting conversations with them. I have no doubt about that. But I think for students who see this, it gives a kind of message, it's all okay. Everything is fine. Here you have this enormous military establishment with close to 1,000 military bases around the world outside the United States. Those issues are never brought home to students in a way that really gets them to see the country that they're living in and the national security establishment that they support with their tax money. This has to change.
But those issues come up in the dialogue. So. But Ron,
yeah, I'm excited about the idea of a separate conference, whether it's in Wisconsin or somewhere else. I have two questions. One is, I don't know if folks are in touch with Skip Delano, who put together a repository of GI papers at Columbia University. He's a Vietnam vet who worked with us in Anniston, Alabama. That's where he left the service. He stayed on another couple of years. But also, I don't know if people know this Julian Bond, who stepped in here originally and then had to leave. His nephew is married to the new ambassador, U.S. ambassador to Vietnam, and just started there a few months ago. I sent him almost immediately a copy of Dr. Spock in Vietnam, and also the documentary film Sir No Sir, thinking that as he starts in his official position, he ought to have some other background other than what he might have learned at the State Department or in school. And so I'm also wondering if taking advantage of this connection and the fact that he's undoubtedly more liberal than most U.S. ambassadors have been, though I can't say that for sure. I mean, because I don't know who the past ambassadors were, but that if people are also thinking about other official commemorative veterans against the war activities in Vietnam, that this might be an opportunity over the next year until the next U.S. president changes the ambassador.
Yeah. If you have Skip's email coordinates,
I do.
I'd just like to comment on this in terms of war legacies, both unexploded ordnance and Agent Orange. I've known and worked with all of the ambassadors since Pete Peterson down to the current one, Ted Osius. And the position of the State Department, which they represent, is that there is, it's fine to clean up the UXO. the unexploded ordnance. We've had a breakthrough in that they now agree it's okay to clean up the dioxin at former military airports. But they are still unalterably opposed to any connection between dioxin exposure and ill health in this facility. And so I like Tedos's. I think you have a correct assessment of him, that he's part of a system that will only go so far. The Congress is far ahead of the state, far ahead. That's why we see a Congress in all days.
Yeah, I see a really very contemporary problem. Since I've been filming homeless vets, but also being able to work with U.S. vets and Vets Connect and a lot of places, is that when I talk to these vets, they can't integrate themselves into civilian life. And they say, we went into the military, they loved us when we were soldiers, they dislike us because we're vets. And they also had many, weeks and months to adapt to military life. When they come out of military life, they're just plopped into civilian life with no one to talk to and nothing to do. I mean, people tell me stories about how they wanted to commit suicide, but the rope broke and, other things like this. And I think that that's something that's really important to discuss and to figure out what one can do.
Okay. Well, as far as, I think there's a way to frame this as far as part of the healing of moral injury is also the beating of swords into plowshares, or the cleaning up the waste of war. And so I think that I was interested to hear, the U.S. government is actually helping with finding graves of Vietnamese. That's something that we ought to hold up as an example of a more enlightened direction. And I think making a claim to the public, the center of the public space is really important. And I had to do a lot of ground reconnaissance in finding the site for this bell tower near the Lincoln Memorial there. There are all these uber patriotic events going on there, but we can make claim to that space and have dialogue, like we're planning to deliver a wreath at the wall as part of the public ceremony that is to all the dead and wounded, including the North and South Vietnamese, to heal moral injury. And so I think that developing the curriculum is all really great, and very important, but that we also need to be there. And last comment real quick is, it's been a big undertaking physically, in bringing this tower, and we're going to be keeping vigil there, so we need support, but it's also, like as far as films and things, we're going to be there for 2 weeks, and so we could be doing, it's summertime, so we could be doing documentary screenings right there, and so people can come to the program about that.
Yeah, I got a time signal from our organizer, so maybe one more quick comment, and then maybe I can try to remind us what we were talking about, so what options were out there.
If it's okay, one of the things that you mentioned, Barbara, that really touched me personally was when I was active in Vietnam Veterans Against the War, I had 2 really, really close friends commit suicide. And this afternoon we're going to be marching to the memorial. There's 58,000 names on that memorial, and there's 116,000 names that are not on that memorial that committed suicide. And who knows how many are coming back from these other theaters that had this incredible challenge of reintegrating into a society with this moral injury. And so
we just had workshops. Half of the veterans that coming back that came to our workshops in the 1,500 half had considered suicide.
So if I can just, we need to get out of here, but I think the question of remaining engaged with this Pentagon Commission is very important. And the suggestion has been made, maybe we should sign up in our, Vets for Peace groups or locals, whatever local group we're involved with, and have events. But try to put forward these kind of messages we've talked about here. It seems clear to me that, caring for the veterans in a substantial way, just don't throw them back out, and dealing with this horrific problem of the suicide epidemic among our veterans, and why is that happening, and how the moral injury issue relates to that, and to the type of missions that they're sending us out on. If they want to honor us, it's a kind of mantra that I'm always offering on this. If they're going to honor us, the key thing is not to send us on unjust illegal wars of aggression, and then care for those who come back for a lifetime of care that they will need and support. So I think that's key. I think I've heard some interest in a possible conference next year that focuses on the GI movement, so we'll start to put that together and get in touch with everybody who's come to the conference. So if you're registered, you'll get word about that, and we'll need to put together a group, a committee to plan it. And we didn't talk much about how we engage with the current military, but I think some of the things like what Jim Driscoll was talking about, and the kind of work that Hutto and others have done more recently needs to be part of our priority as well, to keep supporting our brothers and sisters in the current generation of the military.
Can I just say that Marilyn, I don't know if everybody knows this, but Marilyn also created a peace chapel on our campus. And if you haven't visited it, it's in central Pennsylvania. If you're passing through that part of the world, it's really quite stunning in its simplicity, and it has the same sort of dialogic relationship with the world that the wall does.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
We had a conversation. It's